Americans just love chicken, perhaps because it lends itself so well to comfort food dishes. Well, I have a couple of really tasty ones for you today. Like my white chicken chili. The chicken and beans make it hearty. Cayenne and chili powder bring the heat. But what I really love is the sour cream salsa and avocados you pile on top. Fried chicken is about as American as you can get. My recipe comes from my old friend Jean Anderson, who bakes hers. It's so juicy, I swear you can't tell it's not fried. And my creamed corn and braised mustard greens bring the best of the South to your mouth. It's chicken comfort food today on Sara's Weeknight Meals. Funding provided by
Family-owned and Indiana-grown, Maple Leaf Farms is a proud sponsor of Sara's Weeknight Meals. Providing a variety of duck products for home kitchens, Maple Leaf Farms Duck helps inspire culinary adventures everywhere. Maple Leaf Farms.
Subaru builds vehicles like the versatile Subaru Forester, with symmetrical all-wheel drive and plenty of cargo room. A recipe made for whatever the day brings. Subaru, a proud sponsor of Sara's Weeknight Meals.
And thanks to the generous support of Hi, I'm Sara Moulton. Welcome to Sara's Weeknight Meals. You know, the thing I like most about the white chicken chili at my local burrito place is the sour cream. Because white chicken chili is such a different take on chili, which I think of as red and beef and tomatoey. This is a whole different thing, but boy, is it good. So that's what I'm making right now. I've got some butter in here, about 4 tablespoons, and I'm gonna add about a cup of chopped onion. And we're just gonna start softening this. We don't wanna get any color on it because this is white chicken chili. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you brown them, but I don't know, I wanna keep it pure. So we're gonna start with the onion, and then I'm gonna get my garlic. And I don't know, this is the largest garlic I've ever seen. Now, what's cool about this? You know, you probably associate chili with long cooking and depth of flavor and millions of ingredients. Well, this particular one is really rather quick. This is more than a tablespoon. What I really want is a tablespoon, but as you saw, I had those huge guys. Yeah, it's a little more, I don't care. I really like garlic. And when you cook it, like we're gonna cook it here, it's not that intense. So now we're just gonna get that softened in about a minute. So I'm gonna go over there and get a 1/4 cup of flour because we have to thicken this because I'm adding the sour cream. And sour cream is not high enough in fat that you can boil it. There's only a few dairy products that you can boil that won't curdle. One of them is heavy cream and the other one is creme fraiche. Anything else doesn't have a high enough butterfat content to boil. It'll just split. So we have to stabilize our sour cream with some flour. And I'm just gonna take this right over like this. So what I do is for every tablespoon of flour, I cook it at least a minute when I first put it in, and then at least a minute later on when I simmer it. If we cook it enough, it won't taste floury. The general ratio is for every tablespoon of fat, a tablespoon of flour. And actually it was the reverse here. I knew I wanted to add 4 tablespoons of flour, so I made sure I started with 4 tablespoons of butter. Here go the spices. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of cumin, which is classic for chili. And then we're gonna add a tablespoon of chili powder. And finally, I'm gonna add a little cayenne, about 1/4 teaspoon. And let the flour cook and let the spices bloom. Now, while that's happening, I'm gonna get my liquids together. So let's start with a cup of white wine, dry white wine, and you want a wine that you would drink also. I mean, what's the point of putting something in there that doesn't taste good? And you want to whisk it to keep out the lumps. 2 cups of chicken broth. Bring the whole thing up to a boil, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer. And then we're gonna add my ground chicken. Okay, here we go. So this is gonna go in, and I'm gonna break it up in there. Okay, turn it down and break it up. Now, after I get it all broken up, it's gonna simmer in here till it's cooked through, and that's gonna be about 8 minutes. Gonna go hose down? Okay. All right, so 2 cans of white beans. These are 15.5 ounce, and I'm gonna drain them and rinse them very quickly. Okay. And we wanna rinse off the liquid it comes in. So I'm gonna add our beans, and then let me get my sour cream. You could add yogurt if you want. I would add the Greek yogurt. And we wanna add about 2/3 of a cup. As I mentioned, this really puts it over the top. So we're gonna let this simmer away. And let me salt. There is salt in the chicken broth. Even so, it's gonna need some salt as well because we added all that chicken that has no salt in it. It's just about done. I mean, do you believe that? All right, down to the accoutrement. Avocado, you gotta have avocado. We're gonna cut it in quarters instead of in halves. And this is how you should open your avocados, much safer. So you take your knife all the way around the circumference, back to where you started. Then do the same all the way around. Okay, now, there we go. And out comes the pit. Isn't that cool? Now for a little cheese. Either we're going to use sharp cheddar or Monterey Jack. And finally, some lime wedges. Let me set one up for me and Buddy. Boy, doesn't that look just fantastic? Oh, maybe I'll let them garnish their own, but I'm going to garnish mine. I like everything. I like the works. So let me see. Some cheese. Of course, salsa. And avocado. All right, there you go. You know what's so great about this chili is it's perfect for a weeknight, but it's equally good for a crowd. You know, you're watching the game, make a big pot of white chicken chili. Oh, how did I forget this? Of course, what would chili be without the chips? So I hope you try this. It's just so quick and easy and so tasty. Not going to believe that my friend Jean Anderson's oven fried chicken has just 5 ingredients, and it's such an easy dish. You just put it together, throw it in the oven, and while it does its thing in the oven, I'm going to be making 2 wonderful side dishes also with 5 ingredients or less. So let's get started. First we need garlic. There's a lot of garlic in this. 4 cloves. And we're going to make garlic butter. This is really sinful. This is a dish for a special occasion. Even though it's not actually fried, which makes it slightly easier to make, it does have a fair amount of fat in it, and you're going to see in just a second. So let me get my garlic and my butter just melting. Now, we're using 2 sticks. You won't need 2 sticks, so don't have a heart attack right away. But it's just better if you have a little more butter, because then you don't have to stop in the middle of breading and go make some more in case you might run out. But you won't use all of that, so don't worry. Here we go with our garlic. There you go. You see, it doesn't take too long to get them down to a small mince. All right, into our butter. Okay, so now we get our breadcrumbs ready, and what you do is you just take the crusts off. We've already taken the crusts off of several, and we're looking for about 3 cups of fresh breadcrumbs. Now, of course, you can buy breadcrumbs, but they're dry breadcrumbs, which behave slightly differently in this recipe. And fresh breadcrumbs are so easy to make. You're going to see right now, you can do it either in a food processor or in a blender. And it just takes no time at all. I mean, why not? That was it. So that's our homemade breadcrumbs. I noticed that my butter is basically melted, so I'm going to get it in here to cool a bit before we add the chicken to it. So I already had measured out 3 cups of fresh breadcrumbs, and to this I'm going to add 1 cup of Parmesan. First of all, really, you should splurge for the good stuff. And when I say the good stuff, the way you know is because on the label, you can always see part of the word Parmigiano Reggiano. And what that indicates is that this cheese was made in one of the regions in Italy, there are about 4 or 5 of them, where they make the real deal. One very interesting thing is we all now know about microplanes and love them and are using them. They're a great tool for grating cheese. However, here's something interesting. I have 1 cup of grated Parmesan cheese here. This was grated on a microplane. It's 1.5 ounces of Parmesan cheese. If I had grated it using the fine side of a 4-sided grater, this would just be 1/2 cup. So when you grate with a microplane, it comes out much fluffier. You got double the volume. So we've grated this Parmigiano Reggiano using a microplane, and then we add that to our breadcrumbs, we toss it up, and if you want, at this point you could add some chopped fresh thyme or chopped fresh oregano. My friend Jean Anderson learned this recipe at Ladies Home Journal, and then she adapted it for her cookbook and let me use it for mine. But at the time that I added it to my cookbook, my kids did not like green things in their food. So I left out the fresh herbs, the oregano and the thyme, but you can add any fresh herbs you want. Okay, it's time for the chicken. See, this is crazy. We've got very few ingredients, as I mentioned. Now this gets a little bit messy, but we're just gonna carry on. And when you're working with chicken, make sure you don't cross-contaminate. You want to be careful to wash your hands. So first the chicken goes in the butter. That's why we want to cool it just a little bit so you don't burn yourself while you're coating it. We are using whole chicken on the bone with the skin. It's much more economical to buy it that way. What would be even better is if you bought a 3.5 pounder and cut it up yourself. Sort of fun sometimes getting dirty. One of my first cookbooks was mud pies and other recipes, and this is actually reminding me a little bit of that. So coat these on all sides with the crumbs. And it seems funny, you know, to leave the skin on, but believe me, this chicken comes out so moist. And it's delicious hot, it's delicious cold, it's delicious at room temperature, it's delicious the next day. I've never met anybody I made it for who didn't totally love it. It's a favorite up at our farmhouse where sometimes we have 24 people and we just make massive amounts of this chicken. Okay, there you go. So then, if you want, you can drizzle some of this butter on top, or you cannot. I'm going to drizzle it. Meanwhile, I started, of course, by preheating the oven to 350 degrees. Now, before I do anything else, I need to go hose down, so let me do that. Okay, I always keep a bowl of soapy water in the sink. I go into the soapy water first so I don't have to touch any part of the sink, the handles, or anything like that. And that way there's no cross-contamination. Okay, I'm gonna pop this in the oven. These guys are big. Normally they take about 50 minutes, but these might take a little longer. And we'll just check them for doneness in a bit. Now I'm gonna move on to my greens, which is our first side dish. And I'm working with mustard greens today. You can do this recipe. These are going to be braised southern greens. You could do it with chard, Swiss chard, or with kale. They're all delicious, but I love the peppery taste of mustard greens. And this part of the mustard green is rather tough. So the way to get it off the stem is I just pull down and get the green off. There we go. And leave the stem behind. Now, actually, this guy. Then what you need to do is just chop this up briefly and soak it in water. You wash it like you would wash lettuce. So you fill a big bowl with cold water You dump your, I've already washed these, you dump your mustard greens or whatever greens in there and let them float. And then the sand goes to the bottom, the greens go to the top. You lift them out, you change the water, you keep doing it until there's no more sand in the bottom. And then I just chop these up a tiny bit. There we go. Now, in here I have, let me just get it going, a quart of chicken broth. Oops, there we go. A quart of chicken broth. And to this we are going to add, you need to bring it up to a boil. I had it at a boil a minute ago, so we'll be fine in just a second. I'm going to add my greens right in, and we're going to wilt them, stir them for about 3 minutes. This is a fun thing to make, besides the fact that it's just so simple. You can make it a day ahead of time. It's even better the next day. And greens, all of the ones I mentioned, are so good for you. Let me just get them down a bit. All right, so while those continue to wilt, let me get my other ingredients here that we're going to add to this for flavoring. We have ham hocks, and if you can get them split, all the better, because then there's more flavor going in there. What you're looking for is smoked ham hocks. Smokiness adds terrific flavor to our greens, so there we go. And then we're going to add a little red wine vinegar, 2 tablespoons. I love hot pepper. We need about a half a teaspoon. That was a generous half a teaspoon. And then, there we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid on, slightly askew, turn it down, and we're going to braise these greens for about 45 minutes. Now, while that is cooking, I'm just going to tidy up here and then come back and start my corn, my creamed corn, the other side dish. Okay, wow, that is reduced like crazy. I'm going to move my braised mustard greens over here. Ooh, and that smells so good. Most of the liquid has gone down. So I'm going to reduce it a little more. Here we go. Wow, that really reduced, and that's what I want, because I want to concentrate that pot liquor in there. So I'm going to take these ham hocks out. Maybe they'll give us a little bit of meat that we can add back. And at this point, let me taste this, and I'm going to add a little sugar and salt and pepper. You can't wait till the end. You have to season as you go. Wow, that does not need any salt because of the chicken broth. But I'm going to add a little bit of sugar and some pepper. Even though we already have the red pepper in there, I like black pepper too. Oh, it's amazing how the texture changes. It really becomes soft and yummy. I'm going to get going with my corn. Okay, while I'm chopping this onion, let me tell you about corn. Corn has starch in it, right? Corn starch. So although cream corn is often made with actual cream, you don't need the cream. You can take advantage of the natural starch in the corn. The crazy thing about corn is its sugar turns to starch almost immediately. I mean, ideally the scenario is to put your sneakers on, to go to the backyard where you happen to be growing corn, grab the corn, run back to the house, husking the corn as you go, throw it into the water the second you get back in there, cook it for 30 seconds and eat it right away. Now, if you can't do that, if you don't happen to have a cornfield in your backyard, bring it home and refrigerate it and cook it as soon as you possibly can. People, for some reason, think that corn does not need to be refrigerated. Yes, it does. You know, that whole process I just told you is accelerated if it's not refrigerated, of that sugar turning to starch. Okay, I just have these extra bits. Okay, in goes my butter. You could use olive oil. I'm going to get my onion in quickly. And then I'm going to move on to the cornstarch part of the corn. Okay, you know, we all used to cut the corn like this, but the corn goes all over the place. So a friend of mine explained to me what a brilliant idea it was to do it sideways, because you can see it doesn't go anywhere. And that's sort of a nice idea. And certainly, you don't want to waste all that stuff that's on there. You want to scrape that. That's where a lot of the cornstarch is. But we want about 6 cups total of corn for this recipe. And I almost had that much done already. So I'm just gonna combine this with the rest. And then we're gonna puree. What we're gonna do is pulverize 2 cups of the 6 cups. Okay. Isn't that exciting? That was really exciting. I love doing these kind of things. Okay, let me hang on here. My onions are pretty softened. I'm just gonna turn them up a bit. Let me get this corn in here and start cooking. Let's see. And I'm gonna strain this liquid that I just made. You need a medium sieve. And the stuff that's gonna be coming through the bottom of this is gonna be the starchy part. Yeah, look at all that liquid. So now, we're gonna add some water. And our cornstarch corn. And then I'm gonna chop up some scallions and shred some basil. And you're gonna see how nicely, isn't that beautiful? And it's thickening up already. Whoa! So let me turn that down for half a second and chop my scallions. We're going to use mostly the white part and some of the green part. Now, you could take this corn in so many different directions. Let's say you wanted to do Mexican corn. You could start with garlic and onions and then add a chipotle and adobo, some cumin and oregano. Or let's say you wanted to go the Indian route. You could add ginger and a jalapeno and some garam masala. There we go. Do you believe how creamy that is? Isn't that wild? Get my basil ready. Now the basil you want to add at the very end for a fresh taste and also so it doesn't turn that nasty green. And you know the routine, I'm sure, about how to cut up a big herb like this that has these big leaves. What you do is you line them up like a deck of cards, and then you roll them up like a cigar. You make them a tight, tight little bundle here. And then you just cross-cut, shred them. And the idea with fresh herbs is to only hit them once with a knife. Because if you just whack away at them with a dull knife, they will turn black and wet and nasty. Okay, I'm going to save that. That's the very last thing I'm going to do. Let me just see if I can get any meat off of my ham hock down here. I've got a little knife for that. If there's anything worth adding back. Oh yeah, see there's a little bit of meat there. You have to take off the fat. Oh, here we go. Here with a little more here. It's like a little bonanza. Okay, I've got everything ready. I think I've got my southern veal. I've just got to get my chicken out of the oven. Oh boy, wow. This is so delicious and indestructible. It's very hard not to get it right. All right, let me taste the corn and I want to add a little salt and pepper and finish it with its basil. Oh wow, that looks so good. Let's see what it needs. Oh, absolutely, of course it needs some salt. I know that looks like a lot. People are always like, ah! But it's kosher salt. Kosher salt is half the volume of table salt. So it looks like it's a lot more than it is, but it's not. Stir in the basil. Oof, last thing, because we want it to be really fresh and wonderful. I just love basil and corn, but you know, I think corn goes with every single herb. Corn is sort of like tomatoes. Corn and basil, corn and tarragon, corn and dill. You can just add any herb to it, just the way you can add any herb to tomatoes. There we go. There's our corn. And now let's set ourselves up with a plate and a wing. Hey, you know, if you're gonna have this, you might as well go for broke. And some of our delicious greens. There we go with that wonderful liquid. Time to eat. I'm gonna go sit down. Okay, so we're gonna round this out with some wonderful Southern cream biscuits and a little bit of sweet Southern tea. And you've got a meal. You know, I have to say, I'm not a fan of 5 ingredients. I feel like I'm in a straitjacket. But when they add up as beautifully as these 3 dishes did, I have to say I'm a fan of that equation, and you will be too. I'm Sara Moulton. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time on Sara's Weeknight Meals. Sara's Weeknight Meals continues online. For recipes, helpful tips, messages, and lots more, visit us on the web at saramoulton.com/weeknight meals. And go to our YouTube channel, Sara's Weeknight Meals TV. Funding provided by
Family owned and Indiana grown, Maple Leaf Farms is a proud sponsor of Sara's Weeknight Meals. Providing a variety of duck products for home kitchens, Maple Leaf Farms Duck helps inspire culinary adventures everywhere. Maple Leaf Farms.
Subaru builds vehicles like the versatile Subaru Forester with symmetrical all-wheel drive and plenty of cargo room. A recipe made for whatever the day brings. Subaru, a proud sponsor of Sara's Weeknight Meals.
And thanks to the generous support of